Now, today's sort of project, I've got to remake this guy in Schedule 40 stainless steel, 304 stainless. It's part of a washdown pump plumbing. You know, honestly, I could probably reuse this, but it's mild steel. We're going all the way. We're going to do stainless. This section is pretty good still. This section is starting to rot out, and then the plumbing on the overhead in the engine room was starting to rot out as well. So, salvage this piece of Schedule 40 stainless. I'm going to cut these fittings out of it. Those can all be reused. Those aren't cheap. Might as well reuse them. And really chilly. You can see in the low 20s today. Oh, this is the assembly that we're going to start with by refabricating in stainless. I'm going to still use a mild steel flange. Got a brand new flange. And we're going to chop this fitting. Almost looks like we're going to chop it in half. But you can kind of see we've got some weird angles going on here, and that's because it has to mate up with the output of the pump that's already in the boat. So we know this one worked. So I'm going to do my best to recreate this more or less. Might make a fixture for it, not 100% sure just yet. It's an old school technique. Instead of trying to dink with trying to measure everything, what I did is I just made a quick kind of a jig out of some scrap steel. Tack that to the OD of the pipe, and also put this where that flange is going to lie, the angle of that flange. Also measured the, because you got a compound angle, this is twisted and this pipe is also at an angle here. So measured the standoff for the flange bolts, and I'm hoping that that'll get my rough angle. The other thing I'm going to do is just do a 2-hole alignment, stick some bolts in there, and put a angle finder on there, and then hopefully that'll also get me a rough alignment on this flange. We got our flange aligned, and I measured, I eyeballed the center line of these holes. It's going to be close enough. 3/4 of an inch to the edge of that hole, and 1/2 inch to the edge of that hole. So now we've established our angle, and this piece of flat bar serves as a guide for the vertical pipe. It's going to be a little tricky because I'm doing a long run of vertical pipe, but I may hold off on welding this vertical pipe until I get down to the boat. I'm not 100% sure, so I really don't want a seam in there if I don't have to. All that's left is I'm gonna have to lay this in here, and I may just get a piece of scrap 2-inch pipe, tack that on there. It might help a little bit to get my angles and everything. It's gonna be kind of a odd cut. It's gonna be trial and error really, but we'll at least be able to get a little bit further ahead here. Kind of a tricky one. Yes, I know this is plastic. You can't weld plastic to steel, at least not that I know of, but it's 2-inch pipe, and it's got the same OD as the stainless. Stainless is $17 a foot, so it's not really something I want to do trial and error fit up on. But we're making progress. We've got our alignment of our flange. Measured the standoff. It's rough. That's going to be close. There's wiggle room on those holes. Now I'm going to measure. I've got a nice flat base here. I'm going to measure the angle of my flange. And this is kind of just the vertical elevation or angle, I guess you could say. And that comes up with 65 degrees. Okay. Again, I've got a nice reference here. pull the angle of this pipe, and that's about 98 degrees. So those are going to be good starting points to begin to fit up my stainless steel elbow. So we'll kind of transcribe that and see how that fits. Oh, success! Cool. All the time scratching my head trying to think of how to do this worked out. You have a little bit of a gap there. Might try and clean that up. That's why I like these slip fit flanges, because you do have quite a bit of tolerance there. I mean, you can see how that can rock around. But we've established our critical dimension. I kind of like to use painter's tape for a straight edge as opposed to a wraparound when you have angled fittings. The wraparound's so thick it tends to kind of curl. So we've got that dimension. We know that that's where our pipe is laying, and we can cross check it too. We can chuck the old one in there and double check, but pretty darn confident that we're where we need to be. So we'll clean that up and get some tacks on that. It's going to be a little tricky to hold that as I tack. What I may do is throw a tack down there and then tack it in there, but we'll see how it goes. The really important thing with stainless, it's got to be really, really clean. Now, granted, we're going to be going stainless to mild steel on this first tack or first joint, so it's not incredibly critical, but we'll get a brand new flap disc out just because, and I'm going to be running 309 rod for this tack. I do have 308 flux core MIG wire that I'm going to be running for stainless to stainless, but for mild steel to stainless you want to run 309. Got 3 pretty healthy tacks on there. That one didn't quite bridge. I've got to bump up my amperage. Gonna do a little preheat on this flange. It's always tricky. I've kind of learned that, especially with stainless. You've got to run these 309 rods at low amperage, and this is a lot of material for that tiny rod to cut into. So gonna get a preheat going on this, and I think we can weld that out. I'm pretty happy with this alignment. So we'll get a preheat going. More or less root pass in there. Took a pass with a hardstone, and now we'll run our cap. Taking some breaks, letting this thing cool. Now we're up to 305. We're a little warm. Really happy with how that cap's laying in there though. Really nice. And cleaning after every pass with stainless, super important. Cool, that'll work. Nice pass. This rod, it's 309-17. It's really tough to run. I need to get some different rod, but it works. Fit up. Got to hold my back plate here. My tacks are weak, starting to break. But there's our alignment again. I'm going to use stainless pipe, and that is pretty darn perfect. Worked out well. I think the next step, I will measure to where my 45 needs to fall, and then there's going to be an offset on that too, which is kind of a pain in the butt. However, I think what I can at least do is weld in the vertical section, and then we'll figure out the offset on that 45 when we get